Media literacy is the ability to critically analyze the types of stories that are fed to you in the media and to determine their accuracy and credibility. I think it's become increasingly clear in recent years that we need some sort of like universal media literacy training because thanks to social media, predatory marketers and media figures are having a field day manipulating the masses. So today I'm going to give you a very simple way of protecting yourself from media manipulation, and it takes the form of 5 questions. All you have to do is ask yourself these 5 questions, and you will be far more resistant to media predators. Also, I'm bringing my husband as a guest on this video, since he is a marketing consultant to supplement my perspective as a doctor of clinical psychology. As someone who practices ethical marketing, he can speak to what's going on in the minds of marketers, while I can speak to what's going on in the mind of somebody who's being manipulated. And if you're interested in marketing services, whether it's website creation, search engine optimization, video editing, Photoshop, email campaigns, I'll link my husband's marketing agency in the description below, and he's actually going to be the one to edit this video so that you can get a sense of what his video editing style is. Without further ado, let's get into some media literacy training. Part 1, predatory versus ethical marketing. So we're going to start by talking about marketing because all media is essentially trying to sell you something. So in a sense, all media involves marketing. So first, what is the purpose of ethical marketing? I would personally say it's to help businesses reach their ideal customer. So for instance, when I am marketing my books, I'm thinking of who's my ideal audience, who would most enjoy my book. Or at the beginning of this video, I mentioned Nikolai's marketing agency because there are people who could benefit from his marketing services. So I think ethical marketing is really just highlighting what a product or service has to offer, putting its best foot forward without really making huge promises that they can't follow through on, without focusing on fear or rage or other really powerful emotions to sort of drive the customers. So that it's win-win for both the seller and the consumer. For example, a news article that accurately informs readers while also getting clicks and bringing them ad revenue to the news agency. It's win-win. They both get something that nobody's getting manipulated for.
So when I think about ethical marketing, it really comes down to about 6 key elements: building long-term trust, empowering customers, building authentic connections, fostering social impact, encouraging brand accountability, and to stand out in oversaturated markets. So examples of these 6 key elements would be for building long-term trust. Patagonia has positioned itself to be very sustainable, and that really resonates with its target audience. So when its consumers purchase Patagonia, they understand that they are aligning themselves with these same values, and that goes a long way. With empowering customers, that can be seen in The Honest Company. They include a detailed, transparent list of all the key ingredients in their products. This shows to the consumers that the brand really cares about who is actually using this product and allows them to make informed decisions about which ingredients they want to use in their skincare, their baby products, and their cleaning supplies. In terms of building authentic connection, this can be seen in a variety of ways. The Lego Company has a Legos Idea platform in which consumers are able to submit their own submissions for different designs and vote on different ideas as well. This is also seen in a lot of TV shows. You can think of American Idol, how they incorporate fan voting at the end. I don't know if they still do. They definitely did at the genesis of American Idol. And other shows, one off the top of my mind is Mythbusters. They would read fan submissions, fan letters to the show, and sometimes incorporate the myths that were presented by these audience members into the show. For fostering social impact, this can be seen in companies that plant a tree for every one of their products that was purchased, or in the case of Bombas, they have a one bought, one donated policy. Terminology is maybe a little different than that, but for each pair of socks that is purchased, they supply homeless shelters with clothing and socks, as those are the most requested items at these homeless shelters with each purchase. In terms of encouraging brand accountability, this is also seen in Tom's one-for-one policy, where they donate a pair of shoes to a person in need in a different country. However, since this policy was created, Tom's has evolved that policy to include other social initiatives such as providing clean water. And this can also be seen in Apple's Red. While Apple is not necessarily the best company, they do have options available for people who would like a portion of the proceeds that Apple receives to be donated towards fighting HIV and AIDS. Standing out in oversaturated markets, a company that comes to mind for me is Lush Cosmetics. They pride themselves on having cruelty-free and handmade products in their offerings, which is a rarity in the beauty industry and really sets them apart from other providers of beauty products.
The Body Shop too.
Ah, did not know about the
Not
Body Shop.
handmade, but cruelty-free.
That's good. We need more of that. So really, ethical marketing often results in longer customer lifetime value, which outweighs the short-term gains that can be obtained through predatory practices.
Now, what about the components of predatory marketing? For me, one sign of predatory marketing is making promises that they can't keep. So this would be relying on the customer's desire or hope for something that they really want. So for example, sometimes I get emails from people trying to make it seem like I'm losing out for not using whatever services they're trying to sell me, like kind of trying to make it seem like I have some sort of lack on my channel that they could fill. Another example is sometimes I've seen people sell courses saying like, if you buy my course, you're going to get wifed up, you're going to find a husband by the end of the year. Something that like you just can't promise people. You know, that's very different from, for instance, how I try to market the connection course, where it's like, this is where you're going to learn skills for healthy relationships. You have to promise people things that you can actually follow through on and not overpromise unless you want to be manipulative.
And side note, please stop sending these emails about thumbnails and editing services for Anna. All of that is done in-house. And a lot of people do write these emails saying your editing style is so bad. Oh, these thumbnails are terrible. And
really?
That's just not a great way to position yourself, especially when it's all being done in-house.
And I have a marketer as my husband.
So one component of predatory marketing that kind of follows what you were saying is preying on insecurities of the audience to create a sense of urgency or dependency. This is called targeted vulnerability exploitation. This is seen on Facebook and Instagram ads, meta ads of beauty products, weight loss, male pattern baldness. All of these really attack the consumer's pain points, and not in a very positive way, but urges people to purchase their products.
What is the difference between them targeting something that's an insecurity versus exploiting an insecurity? Like, let's say someone has male pattern baldness and they have like a product to fix that. Like, how could they market it without exploiting the insecurity?
I'd say it really comes down to the language and positioning of your advertisement itself. If it's including, false statistics of 75% of bald men can't find a girlfriend, and then we have the magic cure or something like that, it's promising an idyllic product without really showcasing how it's been used or customer success stories, or even some that are attacking these insecurities like
you'll never find a wife with that male pattern baldness.
Exactly.
Okay, got it.
45% of doctors agree with this or are upset about this one trick.
Yeah.
And to follow that, companies also implement scarcity tactics, creating an illusion of limited availability to pressure the target audience to make the purchase quickly and without much thought. Coming to the purchasing decision in a haste rather than going and spending their time researching whether this is the product that is the best fit for them. Examples of that can be seen in the clothing brand Supreme. They always have limited drops, which is also paired with super high pricing, creating a sense of if you don't purchase this now, then you're going to completely miss out forever. I've also seen this in computer software, most notably recently Evernote I use the free version on my computer, and for about 2 weeks after the new year, I was constantly getting a pop-up every single day that was showing limited sale now, and then it had a countdown timer for about an hour, but that thing would show up 4 times a day, and that is obviously not something to be trusted. This is also seen in other people who gather text messages or phone numbers of their clients and send text messages alerting them of a 24-hour sale. And if you don't purchase it or don't even click the link, maybe you'll receive a text the next day saying, oh, sale extended constantly. It's just very predatory, and it doesn't leave a good taste in the customer's mouth. This is also seen in the airline industry and event ticketing, such as Spirit and Ticketmaster, in which they use dynamic pricing based on how many seats are available left, or airlines also do a lot of other predatory practices, but don't need to get into that in the scarcity tactic section.
Yeah, like how if you don't use incognito, they increase the price because they realize it's you looking at the ticket the second time.
Or using identifying factors to change the price. There was that big, I don't even know what it was, interrogation of these airline companies recently.
Yeah, that was fun to watch. Another manipulative marketing technique is fear-mongering. So you see a lot of these really apocalyptic headlines because people are more likely to click on something that induces a painful, powerful emotion. Fear is a big one. If they feel like the world is falling apart, they're going to be like, I need to know about this. I'm going to click on it.
Have you fallen victim to that? To the fear-mongering tactics of corporations or news?
Definitely to news. I mean, I used to more in the past, but nowadays when I see them, I can see what they're doing and it just kind of pisses me off. And it's like, you are trying to instill fear in people, and sure, maybe it gets you clicks, but it makes the world hysterical, and I don't like that.
Companies can also partake in aggressive pricing in order to drive out competitors and dominate the market. This has been seen with Amazon.com, maybe 15, 13 years ago. Amazon.com was using pricing bots to consistently outprice Diapers.com, offering diapers at maybe something like 30% lower than Diapers.com was offering, and even taking a loss in that. But they were playing a long game because they were hoping, and this did happen, that Diapers.com would eventually need to be shut down, and then they sold themselves to Amazon. Uber also has done this with predatory pricing with heavily subsidized rides in order to push competitors out of the market and attract customers to only use Uber and make them more comfortable with using Uber, or just really bringing it into a sense of muscle memory when they're trying to order a ride.
I also have an example of that within the healthcare industry of companies like BetterHelp, who are offering very competitive prices compared to like therapists in private practice, and even sometimes pretending to offer those therapists within their company. So they'll like take their bio from Psychology Today and it takes you to BetterHelp's website, for instance. And then over time, of course, now we're seeing therapists in private practice really struggling with their caseloads because of these, what would you call it, like the corporatization of mental health care. And of course, this is my opinion, allegedly, I think that in the future, these corporations will get greedier and greedier and they're going to increase their prices just like Uber did. And then you're still going to end up paying very hefty prices for healthcare, except now they've also completely killed off
Competitors.
Yeah.
And you have to be careful with these companies because if they're implementing these sorts of predatory practices, who knows what they're going to do with your data or what they're going to do in the future. So always keep an eye out for that.
Another example of the way marketing will try to manipulate you is by rage baiting. So sometimes, like I said, people are going to click more on something if it induces a powerful, painful emotion like rage. And self-righteousness in particular is neurochemically like a drug hit. Like they've actually done studies looking inside your brain, what happens when you're feeling self-righteous. It's like, snorting something. And so if you can get people to feel self-righteous or to feel a sense of like, I'm somehow a victim or I'm experiencing an injustice, then you've got them hooked to whatever content they're consuming or whatever you're selling them. And there's nothing wrong with highlighting an injustice if it's actually occurred. But where it gets shady is where you start to see things like headlines saying this female celebrity is a mean girl because she set a boundary with the interviewer, that's meant to create a sense of rage that is just not proportionate to what's happened. Or sometimes you'll see even content creators saying something really outlandish, just hoping to get engagement because it's going to get them more money. And at the end of the day, they don't care if it makes them disliked. They just want to get that check.
And then, of course, once you click that article, it's like a cookbook recipe where you have to scroll through so many different ads in order to get to what turns out to be absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
A few more aspects of predatory practices. Those include astroturfing, lock-in strategies, and preying on competitor weaknesses. So astroturfing is the act of purchasing fake reviews, fake views, or just using bots. This can be seen with Samsung having paid for fake reviews in Taiwan for their products, and YouTubers or artists on Spotify, Apple Music, paying for views, paying for bot views. And in the long run, that's just going to come back to bite you because those aren't sustainable. It's pretty clear to the distinguishing eye what's going on. And of course, if a song has a million fake plays, but no one's ever heard of it, it's just feeding the artist's own ego, and also, like, what's the point? Lock-in strategies is the act of tying consumers into long-term contracts and making it harder to switch to other competitors. This can be seen in phone plans, internet, TV bundles, where they offer a phone for free, but then you look at the contract and you're, stuck with them for 10 years. Apple is notorious for this practice because of their Apple ecosystem. They lock their consumers into using Mac products, Apple iPhones, the use of iMessage, making it so seamless for people to use iPhone to iPhone communication. And this is also seen in their hardware with, their AirPods being harder to connect to Android devices. And even on the software side too, there's the Apple iCloud. I recently logged out of my Apple iCloud and logged back in, and I deselected a few of the settings there so that not everything on my phone is syncing. And I'm constantly now getting a notification that, oh, iCloud is not syncing your health data. And, it's something I specifically turned off, and they're still just trying to draw me back in, but I will not give in. No one gets my health data besides BetterHelp.
Oh my God.
Preying on competitor weaknesses. This was seen in the Apple versus PC ads back in the day, where the whole message is Apple is more cool, more hip, and the PCs are riddled with viruses, they're clunky and all that.
Losers.
Exactly. This was also seen in Domino's and Subway. Domino's created a campaign when Subway was going through a time in which their food quality was being criticized and they were receiving lawsuits because of their tuna, which they probably should have. However, Domino's then used that opportunity to position themselves with a campaign called Toppings Are Better, emphasizing that their ingredients and portions are better in comparison to Subway itself. A similar example is with Audi and BMW. Audi created an advertisement about some new car with the tagline, "Your move, BMW." However, it kind of backfired on Audi when BMW then released their own billboard that said "Checkmate," showcasing their own new car. This emphasized BMW's confidence in their brand, but Audi was also still in the spotlight because they started this little feud. This is also seen in Pepsi versus Coca-Cola with their taste tests, their blind taste tests. A recent example can be seen with SoulCycle versus Peloton. SoulCycle created a campaign encouraging those who have a Peloton to come in and turn in their Peloton in order to get free classes. And this was capitalizing on Peloton's operational challenges and declining popularity, after the pandemic kind of settled down.
And one more point that I thought of is grossly overcharging customers or taking advantage of people to maximize profits. So for instance, there are people out there who sell courses for like $1,000 to sometimes even $50,000 when it would still be very profitable for them if they sold it at like $300, except more people would have access to it as well. Or social media platforms, once they have a monopoly on social media, making longer and even longer ads and then not even compensating content creators more. Or like with iPhone, for instance, adding bugs to older versions of the iPhone so that the newer iPhone starts to look a lot more appealing once it comes out. Or like the food industry really trying to maximize profits by making food as addictive as possible. Like it's not enough that they are making a profit, they have to also make you very unhealthy in the process. All of these are examples of ways in which companies just get really, really greedy. And, that's like Comparing it to ethical marketing of like Nikolai, who charges like $60 per hour, ethical marketing isn't trying to play anyone. They're trying to make a profit, but they're not trying to squeeze out as much as possible.
Yeah, there's also the example of the pharmaceutical industry besides the Sackler family, who of course have not really received any repercussions for their actions and pushing their painkillers and encouraging doctors to prescribe opiates with financial incentive, but also like insulin. There's absolutely no reason for the price of insulin to be so high, and yet it doesn't decrease. While predatory tactics can deliver quick wins, they often damage reputation, create distrust in the target audience, or can lead to regulatory intervention. All right, I'm disappearing.
Part 2, 5 questions to protect yourself against predatory media. The first question I want you to ask yourself is this consistent with what I already know? If you're hearing something and it just sounds really off, it just sounds really inconsistent with what you've observed, either anecdotally or what you know of the research, it's not necessarily that it's untrue, but it is a sign to just look a little deeper. Develop what I call your BS meter. If you start to do this, if you start hearing claims that sound outlandish, and you get in the practice of just checking in with yourself, you're going to develop a sense of intuition that tells you when to just double check something. So for example, there's a man on YouTube called Dr. Gundry who has claimed, for instance, that eating apples out of season isn't good for you because of their sugar content. When I hear something like that, and I ask myself, is this consistent with what I already know? I'm thinking about the fact that every dietitian, doctor, or nutrition expert I've ever spoken to says that whole foods like apples are the healthiest thing for you. So this already has got my BS meter beeping. Question number 2, is this a high quality source of information? Now, what counts as a high-quality source of information? According to the hierarchy of evidence provided by the National Health and Medical Research Council, the very lowest level of the pyramid is expert opinion, somebody who portrays themselves as an expert telling you what to believe. Then you have more specific studies that have better quality of evidence. So you might have things like case studies, correlational studies, cohort studies, randomized control trials. This is where you're already starting to get at the research. What does the research have to say about this? And then at an even higher level than that are research studies that critically analyze or summarize all of these smaller studies. So things like critical analyses, meta-analyses, systematic reviews that assemble a large amount of high quality studies so that we kind of get a sense of like, what does the entire landscape say? Because you can very well have one study that says one thing and one study that says the polar opposite. But within something like a meta-analysis, you really get to see what does the overall landscape say about this. And obviously here I'm talking about more academic sources of information, but expert opinion would still be a higher quality source of information than even lower sources of information that are not on this pyramid because they're not academic. For instance, a personal anecdote or a gossip tabloid. That's why, for instance, trusting your physician about matters of your health is still a good idea, but even experts can disagree with each other, which is why expert opinion is not as valuable of a source as looking straight at the research. But you see here the section of unfiltered information, which is in gray. That is really important to be disseminated by someone who is scientifically literate, who can filter it for you. And that's also where experts can come in and really help with this. If something is not a high quality source of information, like say a gossip tabloid or a scientific claim that you can find zero evidence for, there's very little merit in trusting that source because you ultimately have no evidence that it's true. So again, going to the example of Dr. Gundry, him saying that eating apples out of season is bad for you is an example of expert opinion. So it's one of the lowest forms of evidence. Now, if he were to cite studies for that, you could then go to those studies and assess the quality of that evidence. But simply having an expert opinion is not enough because you can have inconsistent expert opinions. You can have one doctor who says apples are great for you year-round, and you can have one doctor who says apples are bad for you if they're not in season. And then question number 3 is, what do high-quality sources of information have to say about this? So if you've determined, okay, the source that I'm looking at is not very high quality, Let me look into some evidence that is high quality. Try to go straight to the source or straight to the research and go as high up the hierarchy of evidence as humanly possible. Let's say that you see a headline about celebrity gossip. Unless I have access to court documents or an eyewitness testimony, I have absolutely no high quality sources of information to verify this. So it's all gossip. It's all worth dismissing. What about the Dr. Gundry example? Well, if we were to look at what expert opinions typically say, he's just one expert, right? He's one doctor who says apples are bad for you if they're not in season. But if you look at the consensus of what every other organization and expert says, generally speaking, they're all pretty consistent that apples are good for you. And then when you look at even higher sources of information, when you look at cohort studies and randomized controlled trials, you also see evidence that debunks what he's saying. So then you move on to question number 4. Who has something to gain from me believing this? Remember the definition of predatory marketing. Whoever produced this piece of media is trying to gain something from you while you gain nothing in return. So with the example of rage bait headlines, they're meant to incite rage, which then get more engagement. Whether it's good or bad doesn't really matter. It works out for them either way. And more engagement means more ad revenue. So they are profiting off of you getting angry while you are just getting angry over something that's not true. Again, back to the Dr. Gundry example. If we were to ask ourselves, what would he possibly have to gain from us believing this claim about apples? By making a claim like this, Dr. Gundry is essentially positioning himself as one of the few experts who will tell you the truth. He's kind of building credibility. So if you're hearing this claim from him and you're going, oh my God, no other doctor has spoken about this. This guy is the only guy that I trust. This guy's the only guy willing to tell us the truth. Then even more people are going to buy his book. And if you were to then say sell supplements, a very profitable industry that has not been established as evidence-based, that would be even more of a monetary incentive for him. And then the next question you move into is, what do I believe? After considering whether this piece of media is consistent with what you already know, with higher quality pieces of evidence, whether this piece of media itself is a high quality piece of evidence, whether its creator has anything to gain from you losing, ask yourself, what do I believe? Independently of what this piece of media wants me to believe. Given all the information at my disposal, what conclusion did I come to? And the purpose of this question is to get you in the habit of thinking critically and not just absorbing the immediate message of the media you're consuming. And stay humble with it. Keep looking for more evidence, keep an open mind, consider the possibility that your opinion's wrong, but don't just blindly absorb whatever narrative this one specific piece of media is trying to get you to believe. So in summary, these 5 questions that you should ask yourself anytime you're consuming a piece of media is, number 1, is this consistent with what I already know? Number 2, is this a high quality source of information? Number 3, what do high quality sources of information have to say about this? Number 4, who has something to gain from me believing this? And number 5, what do I believe given all of this information? Part 3, running through examples. I have here an example of a very credible news headline. And then I have an example of a Daily Mail article. So really, really credible stuff today.
Yeah, highbrow.
Yeah. So first we have this Facebook image of Leonardo DiCaprio, and it's saying Leonardo DiCaprio, 49, is on a $32 million private yacht vacation with his 19-year-old girlfriend. I didn't click the see more, but it says on the image, he always knows how to make me happy. I didn't know he had $300 million. And then there's an image of Leonardo DiCaprio jumping in the yacht with what looks like a pubescent girl on the yacht. And then, what's funny to me is there's also a photo of him with his ex-girlfriend Camila Morore, I think is her name, who is definitely not 19 anymore. I think she's 25 because they broke up. I don't know who this other girl is. I'm hoping it's like somebody's daughter on the yacht, but these are not even the same people. And I'm assuming that's why it doesn't say the girlfriend's name, because if you were to actually look up girlfriend's name and like this quote, I'm sure nothing would pop up. Like, I don't even need to check this. I'm telling you right now, there is no way in hell that anyone said this. But when you think about going through the questions I asked you guys to ask yourself when consuming a piece of media, is this consistent with what I already know? no, like these are two different people. It's not consistent. Is this a high quality source of information? What do you think? What do high quality sources of information have to say about this? There are no high quality sources of information that would determine if this is true. Who has something to gain from me believing this? Well, it's supposed to spark rage. Like, I can tell that what it's meant, the narrative it's meant to feed us is rage about, like, oh my God, gold digger. Or even, oh my God, he's so much older, how creepy. Like, the headline doesn't care, as long as it's instilling rage, as long as people are going to be commenting these things under this photo, then they get what they need.
You also have to look at the broader context. Right here, you see, it's not that he's just jumping into the water. It's Mr. Climate Action. He's trying to get away from the yacht that is producing a lot of pollutants into the waters.
Oh, so true. Yeah.
He's really afraid of
triple
the yacht.
Rage.
Exactly. So remember, things can be skewed.
Yeah. And then let's look at this Daily Fail article. Lauren Sanchez's incredible transformation from girl next door to billionaire Bezos' bombshell as she's slammed for inappropriate Trump inauguration outfit. So already here, like, this is not a headline, right? Like, this is not information. Woman wears outfit. Like, this is nothing useful. And then, of course, like, the language used is meant to evoke certain types of misogynistic rage of, like, girl next door, billionaire, supposed to provoke, like, envy, or, like, gold digger. Bombshell, supposed to kind of, like, bimboify her. And then by telling you that she's slammed for her inappropriate outfit, it's supposed to induce this, like, groupthink of, like, yeah, she was inappropriate. I mean, she was, but, like, that's not the point.
Hey, you gotta read the room. Zuck liked it.
Yeah, he did. Like, listen to the language in this. While the eyes of the world were on Donald Trump's historic inauguration yesterday, Lauren Sanchez managed to divert more than a few glances when she took off her coat. Jeff Bezos' glamorous fiancée almost stole Trump's thunder with her racy inauguration day outfit, consisting of a white Alexander McQueen trouser suit revealing a generous flash of lacy white bustier, prompting a storm of criticism on X. The daring outfit choice was in keeping with her theme for the inauguration events, during which she eschewed an elegant politician's wife look most of her fellow attendees opted for, and went for full-on billionaire bombshell glamour. What do you think about the language in just, like, these two paragraphs?
It's so extreme. It's, it's attributing more to, I don't even know. It's just
telling
super
you what
extreme.
to think.
Yeah, it is telling you what to think. And also, like, I don't think anyone would argue that she almost stole Trump's thunder. Not an endorsement. But it's, she's not that important in this. They're just searching for something to, spit out 2,000 keywords for.
Yeah. Again, listen to, like, this narrative of, like, ooh, gold digger, meant to, like, incite rage. Miss Sanchez's trajectory from news anchor and journalist to fiancé of Amazon founder Bezos. So if we were to again go through these questions, is this consistent with what I already know? I don't know her. It's consistent with what I know of misogynistic news headlines, sure. Is this a high quality source of information? Definitely not. What do high quality sources of information have to say about this? Nothing. Okay, like, the only high quality source of information was, like, the recording of, like, seeing it with your own two eyes and making your own opinion about it. Who has something to gain from me believing this? The Daily Fail. What do I believe? I believe the Daily Fail should go bankrupt.
Notice the authors of the article are two women tearing down women.
Yep, that's a shocker.
You think they're bombshells?
I hope this video is helpful to learning more about media literacy training. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a like and comment, because again, engagement is good for content creators, and I'll see you soon.